Good afternoon. I'm actually going to turn the meeting over to the Alateens to do the opening, the steps, and the traditions, and I'll introduce Matt. So Brendan is going to read our opening.
Hello, my name is Brendan. I'm a proud member of Alateen.
Hi, Brendan.
And I'm going to read the opening. We welcome you to this meeting and hope you will find this fellowship the help and friendship we've been privileged to enjoy. We who live or have lived with the problem of alcoholism understand as perhaps few others can. We too are lonely and frustrated, but now and on, we discover that no situation is really hopeless and that it is possible for us to find contentment and even happiness whether the alcoholic is still drinking or not. We urge you to try our program. It has helped many of us to find solutions that lead to serenity. So much depends on our own attitudes, and as we learn to place our problems in its true perspective, we find it loses its power to dominate our thoughts and our lives. The family situation is bound to improve as we apply the Al-Anon ideas. Without such spiritual help, living with an alcoholic is too much for most of us. Our thinking becomes distorted as we try to force solutions, and we become irritable and unreasonable without knowing it. The Al-Anon program is based upon the 12 steps adapted from Alcoholics Anonymous, and we try, little by little, one day at a time, to apply to our lives, along with our slogans in the Serenity Prayer, the loving and interchange of help among members, and daily reading of Alateen literature, and thus makes us ready to receive the priceless gift of serenity. Anonymity is an important principle to the Al-Anon program. Everything said in here, in the group meetings, and member to member, must be held in confidence. Only in this way can we feel free to say what's in our minds and hearts. This is how we help each other in Alateen. Let me read that part. Okay. And reading the steps is Ryan.
Brendan.
Hello, my name is Ryan. I'm a very grateful member of Alateen.
Hi, Ryan.
I'm going to read the 12 steps. Because of their proven power and worth, AA's 12 steps have been adopted almost word for word by Al-Anon. They represent a way of life appealing to all people of goodwill, of any religious faith or of none. Note the power of the very words. Number 1, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Number 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Number 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Number 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Number 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Number 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Number 7, humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. Number 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Number 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Number 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Number 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Number 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to others and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Now I'm going to have Asia read the 12 traditions.
Hi, I'm Asia, and I'm a member of Alateen.
Hi, Asia.
The traditions that follow bind us together in unity. They guide the groups in their relations with others, with AA, and the outside world. They recommend group attitudes toward leadership, membership, money, property, public relations, and anonymity. The traditions evolved from the experience of AA groups in trying to solve their problems of living and working together. Al-Anon adopted these group guidelines and over the years has found them sound and wise. Although they are only suggestions, Al-Anon's unity and perhaps even its survival are dependent on adherence to these principles. 1. Our common welfare should come first. Personal progress for the greatest number depends upon unity. 2. For our group purpose, there is but one authority, a loving God as He may express Himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. They do not govern. 3. The relatives of alcoholics, when gathered together for mutual aid, may call themselves an Al-Anon family group, provided that, as a group, they have no other affiliation. The only requirement for membership is that there be a problem of alcoholism in a relative or friend. Number 4, each group should be autonomous, except in matters affecting another group or Al-Anon or AA as a whole. 5, each Al-Anon family group has but one purpose, to help the families of alcoholics. We do this by practicing the 12 steps of AA ourselves, and by encouraging and understanding our alcoholic relatives, and by welcoming and giving comfort to families of alcoholics. 6, our family group ought never endorse, finance, lend money, or lend our name to any outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, or prestige divert us from our primary spiritual aim. Although a separate entity, we should always cooperate with Alcoholics Anonymous. 7, every group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8, Al-Anon 12-step work should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9, our groups as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those we serve. 10, the Al-Anon family groups have no opinion on outside issues, hence our name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11, our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, films, and TV. We need guard with special care the anonymity of all AA members. 12, anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles above personalities. Thank you.
Before I give you Matt, as chairperson, I kind of forgot something at the very beginning of this meeting, and if y'all would join me in a moment of silence followed by the serenity prayer. Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thanks, guys. I'm not going to take a whole lot of Matt's time up, because I always love it when he talks. It's been my honor and my privilege to be Matt's Alateen sponsor for the past nearly 7 years, since they moved up here from Glasgow. And the cool thing about Matt is, as being a long-term Alateen sponsor in that group, is I've got to watch him grow up. And I do mean literally grow up. It's been scary at times. But, the great thing about it is that he has grown. Matt has, how many years now, 10? Matt has 10 years in Alateen now. So I'm not going to take up any more of your time. I'll give you Matt.
Hi, I'm Matt, and I'm a wonderfully grateful member of Alateen. I can actually say I'm grateful today. I didn't used to be able to do that. I wasn't actually dragged in kicking and screaming like some of my cohorts, but I was a little bit hesitant to go, probably because I was 10 years old, and I was told there would be food, and there wasn't. So, I'm going to start at the beginning because it's usually the best place to start. Growing up, I had a relatively normal childhood, at least on the outside. I had a mom, I had a granddad. I lived in a little town outside of Bowling Green called Glasgow, Kentucky. And, everything was normal. At least that's the way I perceived it to be. If normal was, driving to Bowling Green in the middle of the night for scotch and, having your mom pull over and tell you to shut the trunk because you forgot to shut the trunk and you're on the middle of the interstate. And you're, I was probably 7 or 8 at the time, getting out on the middle of the interstate and shutting the trunk. That was normal to me. That was growing up in an alcoholic household. I was, let's see, God, I'm 20. I was born in November of 1988, born in Louisville. I was the product of a very short marriage. Basically, they got married, had me, decided that they had met their objective, and it was time to part ways. So with that, my mom moved back down to Glasgow, where her family lived, and my dad stayed in Louisville, and eventually remarried. The woman who is sometimes the bane of my existence, sometimes one of my best friends, who is my now ex-stepmother. Of 3 years now, they were married for 13 years, lucky 13. And it's really funny because I remember them going into that 13th year, and my dad said, "It's lucky 13, I hope nothing happens." And then, well, we see what happens. And, you know, growing up, I went to a public school, had a few friends, not many. I wasn't really the popular type. I'm not the kind of kid who turned the strife at home into being really outgoing. I was the kind who internalized it a lot. Everything just stayed inside, and I was really angry a lot growing up, and I didn't know why. I would never pick a fight, but I would lash back if somebody had a word to say. I remember specifically my mom. One of my classmates called my mom a bitch, and you don't talk about my mama. Let's get one thing clear: my mom is the most important person in my life. You don't talk about my mama, whether she's drinking or not. And so I wanted none of it, and as a result, I ended up going to the principal's office because I lashed back. I was also really, really manipulative. I found ways to get you in trouble if I wanted you to be in trouble. And the guy who did call my mom a name ended up in trouble several times after that. That was my childhood. That was me up until age 10 and even after, because, this isn't a miracle program. You got to work for it. And then when I was 9 in June or July? July? What's your sobriety date? Okay. July 21st. July 21st, 98, my mom called me into her room. Actually, it was probably the living room, but details aren't important. My mom called me into one of the rooms of the house, and she was crying. And I hadn't seen my mom cry before. My mom was a very strong woman. She raised me, from the time I was 6 and my grandfather died, she raised me by herself. And, she was always a very, very strong, very, uptight, not uptight, but very outstanding woman. I'm going to get in trouble after this, I just know. She called me into the room and she was crying, and it was something new for me. I was used to her getting mad. I was used to her, being really, really happy all of a sudden. I was used to her, I was used to mood swings, but I wasn't used to her crying. And she said, she broke down. She said, "Matt, there's something wrong with me, and I need to find out what it is. I need to go get it fixed." With that, my mom went into treatment in Bowling Green. I went and lived with a neighbor, which ended up bringing a lot of drama because my dad wanted to know why I didn't go live with him. But I went and lived with one of our neighbors who was a very, very close family friend. And there was one visitation, and the only memory I have of me going to visit my mom is that I was told that I'm not allowed to use the word should, could, or would. And there was a drawing of a garbage can. I think we were talking about internalizing things. I probably should have paid attention. That's really the only memory I have of that. I kind of tried to put that all past me. About 6 months later, in December 23rd, I believe, my mom said, "Hey, there's an Alateen meeting in Bowling Green." And I was like, "Alateen, what's that?" And she told me about it and told me that it was a program, a 12-step program for the teenage relatives of alcoholics. And I was like, why not? And she told me there'd be food. And so I went. There was no food. It's okay. She made it up to me. But I went and I kind of decided it was for me, and I kind of decided it wasn't. My first meeting, we refer to it a lot as the puppy dogs and football meeting. I believe the topic was literally football. At a time, that meeting was going through a couple hardships, and they're back on track now, which is a really good thing. They have been back on track for a while, but I decided to stick it out, and I kept going off and on for probably about a year and a half. And then eventually we found out that there was a meeting in Glasgow, the meeting right down the street from us that we hadn't known about the entire time. And I started going to that. It was a really small meeting compared to the Bowling Green meeting. The Bowling Green meeting at the time had about 15 members, which is really good for an Alateen meeting. And the Glasgow meeting, the first night I went, I was the only person there. It was me and a sponsor. And so I went, and I really, really liked that meeting. So I stayed around. Throughout this time, I noticed a lot of things starting to change about myself. I noticed that I wasn't getting as angry as quick, because it was getting a lot easier to get angry at my mom when she was in the program and I wasn't, because she was getting better and I was actually going backwards, because I saw her getting better and I didn't like that. I didn't like the change, even though it was really positive change. I didn't like the change. I still don't like change a lot these days, I live with it and accept it because my sponsor tells me I have to, but I still don't like it. I noticed that I wasn't getting as angry when I started going to the program, and I attribute a lot of that to the Serenity Prayer. That little prayer. If Mike didn't remember it, I was gonna do it at the beginning of my spiel, but I really started to build back a relationship with my mom. The relationship had started to deteriorate a lot. It was kind of a come home from whatever it was I was doing, shut myself in my room, and don't come out until dinner, and then go back into my room, and then go to school the next morning. That was kind of the extent of my relationship with my mom for a while. And I started to rebuild that relationship. She actually let me play football. Probably the biggest mistake of my life, but I started getting involved in school things. I stopped being such an introvert. That's something that Alateen has definitely helped with. If this were my 10-year-old self, I would be crying behind that big black curtain at the sight of all these people, and now I can get up here and talk to you guys. So, but eventually, after a trip to Comiac, which I'll revisit later, that meeting shut down. There weren't enough sponsors for the meeting, which happens all too often here. So if there are Al-Anons in the room who aren't certified to be Alateen sponsors and could be certified, there's trainings everywhere. Just find one and go. You'll be doing yourself a great service, and you'll be doing the kids a great service, But that meeting shut down, and it wasn't until we moved to Louisville in July of 2002. It was either 02 or 03 that I started going to Alateen again. And I found the J-Town meeting out in J-Town, and it's been my home group ever since. And keep going back every time I can. I don't get out there often enough, but I go back. I live on the other end of town, sadly, but excuse me. And I found that meeting, and I found a lot of really great people. There was a woman in that meeting who has done a lot for me throughout the program. When I went to my first Comiac is Kentucky, Ohio, Michigan, Indiana Alateen Conference. It's the big quad state conference that Alateens look forward to every year. If you haven't heard about it, you will, because we're always spouting off about how wonderful it is and how amazing it is, because it really is. It's, for a while it was the reason I stayed in these rooms. I went to my first Comiac. It was at Terre Haute, Indiana, at Indiana State University, and I didn't really know anybody there. There were only 2 people from my group, and there were about 300 people at the conference from all over those 4 states. And I met a woman who wore bright pink everywhere she went. Her lipstick was bright pink. Her shirt was bright pink. Everything about her was bright pink. Her personality was pink. And you know, she's a wonderful woman, and I really do owe a lot to her. I'm sad to see that she's not here today, but I understand. And she kind of took me under her wing. She said, hey, come over here and sit next to me. Introduced me to a couple people from her group, which was the J-Town group, actually, and just really got me to come out of my shell a lot. And then it was amazing for me to walk into that J-Town meeting, having completely forgotten that was her meeting. That was the meeting that she went to. And look, and the first person I saw was Sherry. And she said, hey, come sit over here. Come sit next to me. And she remembered me. And that was a big deal for me because not a lot of people remembered me. I kind of did my best to fade into the woodwork as a kid. I didn't want to excel at anything because that would draw attention to me. And she remembered me, and that was a big deal. And so I started going to that meeting, and I've been there ever since. And through the course of Alateen, I really have become an entirely different person. I'm not an introvert today, and that's because I've done the work. I'm not an angry person. I get upset, I get frustrated, but one of the questions we ask every now and then in our meeting is, when was the last time you were angry and what was going on? And then what did you do about it? And I think the last time they asked that question, I couldn't really recall the last time I had been angry. And that's because this program has given me so many tools, so many new things that I can use in my day-to-day life, regardless of what's going on. For example, one of our slogans is, let it begin with me. And I have a hard time taking the lead in any situation. Still today, I have a hard time getting up and saying, all right, we've got to get this done. I'm going to get up here and do this. I can't do that for me. I follow. I'm in management where I work. So that doesn't really work. I can't not take the lead sometimes. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without that slogan because it has to start somewhere. Nothing's ever just going to magically happen. I don't know about you guys, but my higher power isn't the kind of higher power who just kind of points his finger and a bus swerves out of the way. My higher power is the kind of higher power who will say, you probably shouldn't step out in front of that bus, and whether or not I listen to him is my choice. And so everything has to start somewhere. Especially at work and everywhere I go today, I remember, let it begin with me. If something's going to change, if I don't like the way things are going, I have the ability to say something. And I can make a conscious decision to actually say something. And I can, make an informed decision and think on it and pray on it. And I can call my sponsor, which I don't do nearly often enough. So I'm going to be a hypocrite for a minute. Call your sponsor. Because every time I do, I feel a lot better. But the program is just, I can't stress enough how much good this program has done for me. When I was my freshman year of high school, I went through what some would call an identity crisis. I wouldn't really call it a crisis at all. It wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't at the time, but today I look back at it. And I realized that I'm gay. And it's not a big deal today to say that, It's not a big deal for me to stand here in front of you guys and say I'm gay. It's not a big deal. It's who I am. I am gay, but it's not who I am. And it took me, Alateen is what helped me realize that I am gay. Gay is not I. It's not an equal sign in between. I was able to talk to my sponsor. I was able to work the steps, which I like to work in the steps. It's work, but I like it. And I was able to realize that it's not the end of the world. And something that I heard in a meeting once was a really good friend of mine, and both she and her sponsor, the other person in this story, are here, so they'll probably get a kick out of this. But she was, having a panic attack over something, and something had happened, and she was, oh my God, blah, blah, and just spewing to her sponsor. And I believe the only words her sponsor asked were, "Did you die?" And the answer is no, because obviously you're still talking, so you can't exactly be dead unless you've perfected zombieism. And I didn't die. I'm here today, and how important is it? It's a little thing. Everything in life is little compared to life itself. I mean, as long as I wake up alive, I wake up in a good mood. Because, every morning when I wake up, I thank my higher power for letting me wake up, for helping me to get through that day before. And I say, what's the plan for today? What are we doing today? Are we going to class? Are we going to work? And the answer is pretty much always yes. So I'm still waiting for him to say no. So, and that's another thing. I have a relationship with my higher power today. I really do. And I can really easily say that. I grew up in an atheist household. There really was no talk of God in my house. When I would visit my dad, we would go to church, and my dad was a Catholic turned Presbyterian through marriage because that's what his wife wanted, and God forbid he learned to say no. And so I kind of grew up in an atheist household with that little conflicting influence from over there. And so I really didn't get all the God talk that went on in our rooms. And today, I'm careful about especially when we have newcomers in our meetings, I'm careful about the God talk. I always try and say, as we understood him, because that's what really kicked it in for me. For the first 3-4 years, I didn't have a relationship with my higher power. I was really angry with my higher power for the first 3 or 4 years. As soon as I came to realize that I had one, I was really angry with him. And it was that little in our literature, every time it mentions God, it says, as we understood him behind it. And I listened to that once, and it kicked in. It was like, as we understood him. It's not the Christian God. It's not Buddha. It's not, some other God. It's the higher power as I understand him. That chair could be my higher power because it is stronger than me. I'm willing to bet. And so I don't have to listen to who your higher power is or yours. It's my higher power. And I can really gladly say that I have a wonderful, wonderful higher power who is, loving and caring and also willing to kick me in the face if I do wrong. If I start listening to Matt's will, he'll say, "Uh-oh, you probably shouldn't do that," and then I get paid back for it later. And so that's a really big thing in my life today. Another big thing is Alateen gave me a second family. In my second Comiac, we were on our way to Michigan, and Mike looked at me and looked at this young lady sitting next to me and said, "You, sit there, talk to her." And I did, and I believe our first conversation was about the Oedipus complex and other Greek tragedies at the age of 13. And she's, been my best friend ever since. I introduced her to other people as the other half of my soul. Just because we've grown really close through the program because we've both grown and we've helped each other to grow. It's given me an opportunity to watch other people grow in the program. got the gift of having been around for a couple 24 hours. And I look at all these people down there, some people that I just met last Monday, and I can already tell are gonna do great things. And people that I've known for, a couple years now and that have grown so much in my eyes. I mean, they may not realize it, but it's just wonderful to be able to sit there and watch these people come in angry and fuming that they have to be there, and it's not their problem. They didn't do anything, to the beautiful people that they are today. And it's given me a second father. It really has. Mike, I can't thank Mike enough for everything that he's done for me. He's done more than my father has for me. And he's known me 10 years less. Actually, 13 years less. And it's because I was willing to suit up. I was willing to show up and sit down. And when I needed to sit down and listen, I was willing to sit down and listen. I didn't blab my mouth and talk about how great this is and how great I am, because it's not about me. It's about growing. It's about the fellowship. And, even though I love speaking because I get to get up here and talk to you all guys about myself for 40 minutes, and I like talking about myself, don't get me wrong. It's not about that. It really isn't. It's about experience, strength, and hope. It's those three words. If by sharing my experiences I can help somebody and give them hope, I've done good. And coming here and talking to you guys, I don't get nervous, because if I can make one person remember one thing I said and it have an impact on their life, I've done my job today. And so, everybody was asking me, are you nervous? I was like, no, not really. And so, I have to work. There's a saying in the program, it works if you work it. And it's the truth. It works if you work it. Not it works if you come to meetings, treat it as a social hour, go home and forget about AA for the next, or AA or Al-Anon or Alateen or whatever program you're in for the next 6 days, and then go back the next night, treat it as a social hour. That's not how this room works for me. For me, it's integrating it into every part of my life, from school to work to waking up in the morning to brushing my teeth. I say the Serenity Prayer when I brush my teeth, because it's a good time. It's a good timer for me. And just because that's when I do a lot of my centering is, in the morning, and when I'm doing my cleansing rituals and all that good stuff, when I'm showering, and that stuff that people try and tell me is important. So, I have to suit up and show up if I want to get better. And I hear my mom say all the time, if you want what I have, you have to do what I did. And it's the people in these rooms that I've seen who came here before me and I've looked up to. So many of the people, if I want what they have, I have to do what they did. And they didn't get what they've got by, joking around. So it's work, but it's good work, and it pays off. Programs, and nowhere in the literature does it say it'll be fun. And it's not always fun. A lot of times it is fun. We have a lot of fun in meetings. We have our fair share of inside jokes. We cut up a lot, and Comiac's a blast. It's 72 hours of sleep deprivation, and it's just a lot of fun. But it's a lot of work too. We go to meetings and we talk about tough stuff to talk about. I mean, getting up here and talking to you guys about everything that's happened isn't really an easy thing, but it's not. It helps me. So even if I'm not helping you, I'm helping me. So kind of a word vomit type thing, catharsis, if you will. And so, there's a clock right there. I didn't see that. But so Comiac, I'll go back to Comiac while I try and gather the rest of my thoughts. I kept going to Comiac. I missed one because it was right in the period where we had moved from Glasgow to Louisville, and it was one in Kentucky. And then I went back, and I had, in 2006, the wonderful, wonderful privilege of being the chairperson for Comiac 32 in Kentucky. And it was the most stressful, painful, rewarding experience of my life. I'm telling you guys, it was like pulling teeth. And I loved every minute of it. I really did, because I really like group dynamics. I like looking at how groups work and, what's the best way. It's the manipulative side of me, really. It's, what's the best way, because I'm still sick, I really am. I wouldn't need a program if I wasn't. But it's what's the best way to get this group of people to work towards this common goal. And that's a lot of what I got to do. And I wouldn't have been able to do it if it hadn't been for the program. Because, it's all about communication. I know today that I can't sit there and look frowny and have the person sitting across the table know why I'm upset. It's all about communication. My mom and I got into a kind of a little spat the other day, and finally I had to cool down and say, what am I doing? I understand that you're upset. What is it that's on my side of the street, because I don't see it? Can we talk about this? And we did, and everything's better, We talked about it, and it's all about communication. It really is. It's probably why I'm a political science major. Moving to Louisville not only got me back into Alateen, but it got me back into my dad's life a lot more, which is a blessing, maybe? No, it really is a blessing. I love my dad dearly. I just don't really like the disease. My dad is also an alcoholic. He's the active one in the family now. He's an alcoholic and a drug addict. And it was really tough for me to get back into his life, because when I moved back here, he was still with my stepmom. And my stepmom is a very mentally and verbally abusive person. I clearly remember coming downstairs one day, and my hair was about this length, and it was probably a little curlier than this. And she told me that I wasn't allowed to leave the house until I did something about my hair, because she wouldn't be seen with a child that hideous. And I wanted to look at her and say, "Look here, heifer." But I didn't. I thought twice about it. Alatene's given me a brain-to-mouth filter, too. It's a wonderful thing. There's about a 10-second delay between my brain and my mouth that I can stop things now. And I just remember running back up to my room and being hysterical. I called my mom wanting to go home. It was horrible. It was the worst thing ever for her to call me hideous. And today I look back at it and I laugh. I really do. But that's just the kind of stuff that I had to put up with in the household, because she needs a 12-step program of some sort. Probably, I don't know. But she would probably benefit from any one of the rooms. I love her dearly. I really do, because she was part of my life for 13 years, and she did do a lot for me. Whether it be taking me to the hospital for a tethered colon that was imaginary, or just any number of things. She really has done a lot for me. When I was younger and I was living in that situation, all I saw was the bad. All I saw was her calling me hideous and her rushing me to the hospital and refusing to take me home because I was 8 years old and, God forbid, had a couple little bitty skid marks. I mean, it's not a big deal. I'm an 8-year-old. And she ran me to the hospital, and it was just drama. It always is with her. But, I look back at that today and I laugh. I really laugh about it because it's so funny. I got so upset about every little thing with her. I really did. And, if anything, I didn't help diffuse the situation ever, because I was a really sensitive child. I like to cry a lot. And generally in those situations, if you cry and throw a fit, it doesn't really help things. And it's, the gift of hindsight is excellent to look back at these things. But I just went on a 10-minute ramble. I apologize. So I got back into having sort of a relationship with my dad. And when I was about 15, I found out that my dad was doing coke. And the way I found out was I was in the basement looking for something in the laundry room, and I came across a picture frame that had a razor blade and white powder on it. And I could tell, I wasn't dumb. I could tell that that was what had been going on. And I didn't confront him about it, but I did. I stopped talking to him for a while. And I made the decision that he wasn't the best person to have in my life. And Alateen really helped me through that period of my life, because it was a really tough period of my life. Because even though I grew up not really seeing my dad, I still saw him once every 2 weeks. Visitation required that, even if I didn't want to. And so he was still that constant presence in my life. And then I was able to make a conscious decision. I was able to ask my higher power for help and to pray about it and ask him, what do I need to do to keep me sane? Not what do I need to do to make my dad get better. Not what do I need to do, to fix this. What do I need to do to keep me sane? And the next meeting I went to was on detachment. And that was my higher power's way of telling me that I should probably detach with love. And I did. I had a talk with my dad and said, Dad, I love you. I really do. I care for you a lot, and I hate to see this happening to you, but I think right now, I think it's best if I don't call you for a while. I didn't say don't call me. I didn't say I don't ever want to hear from you again. I said I think it's best for me if I don't call you for a while, because that's all I can do. Because, the first step is we admitted we were powerless over alcoholism and that our lives had become unmanageable. And I admitted that I was powerless over my dad that day. I admitted that I couldn't control it. Didn't cause it, can't cure it, can't control it. It's the 3 C's. And I admitted that to myself that day. I said, God, I can't do anything about this but keep my side of the street clean, keep myself healthy. And I did. I kept myself healthy. And I ended up, a couple months later, called him up and said, hey, how are you? And we just picked everything up from there. And it really wasn't, it wasn't a big deal. Today I live with my dad. I live in active alcoholism and drug addiction. And that's certainly been an adventure. I moved in over Thanksgiving break for monetary reasons. I go to the most expensive school in Kentucky. And I saw the opportunity to save about $7,000 a year and decided I'd hit that up. And that was another decision that I had to pray on, because I didn't know if I wanted to go back and live in active alcoholism again. The last time I did that was with my mom, and that ruined a relationship that thankfully is salvaged today, but that really did ruin our relationship. And I can say because of the program, that relationship that I have with my dad is stronger than ever. I don't hate my dad because I see what he does. I walk into the room and I see so many open beer bottles, or I accidentally walk in on him smoking a bong or something, and it's not a big deal for me today. Yeah, it sucks. It hurts. My dad's a drug addict. It hurts because he's, slowly killing himself, and he's doing it in front of me. But it's his disease. It's not him. It's the alcoholism and the drug addiction. Though you may not like all of us, you'll love us in a very special way. I do love my dad in a very special way. I don't like him all the time. There are lots of times, especially when he asks me for money, that I don't like him. But I love him. I really do. I really do care for him a lot. Past couple years have been a pretty rough experience for me. I moved out on my own for a while I moved on to the dorms, which are kind of like having parents, but not really. But I got into college. I went to St. X High School, nice private Catholic all-boys school. Didn't really want to, but it was family history type deal. I was a fifth-generation graduate, didn't have a choice. I was able to, my grades did suffer a little bit because of the move and because of a lot of the things that were going on with the alcoholism in the house, and not actually in the house, not active alcoholism, but I'm still sick, and I'm sure my mom would be willing to admit that she has her days. We're all still sick in a way. That's why we keep coming back. Nobody ever gets fixed. It's not a miracle cure. So, my grades suffered a bit, but I was able to, through a lot of threatened butt kickings from my sponsor and my mom, I was able to get my grades up and graduated with a 3.3 GPA, and got into Bellarmine University. On a full ride scholarship, which was excellent. The only thing I paid for was room and board and my books, and that still cost me more than it would have cost me to go to U of L. I got into Bellarmine, and that was a really great time for me because I moved into the dorms. I made a lot of new friends, and I really love it there. I really love school. There are times when I wake up and say, do I have to? And today my mom's not there to kick me and tell me I do. So sometimes I don't, but it's college kid syndrome. Every now and then you just got to skip one. But I do go to the vast majority of my classes, and I do, I get good grades. I have, last time I checked, like a 3.1 GPA. And I will be graduating in, hopefully, graduating in May of 2011 with 2 bachelors, one in political science and one in history, and minors in theater and sociology. I tell people I'm majoring in overachievement. And that's something that the program's helped me with a lot too, because when I got to Bellarmine, I tried to do everything. I wanted to get out there and be seen, and I was going to do this. I was going to triple major. I was going to do all sorts of stuff. I actually could still triple major and graduate on time, but I've decided that for my sanity, I probably won't. And a lot of it was because, because I blended into the woodwork so much purposely as a kid. Today, I think my subconscious is kind of rebelling against that and saying, no, now you have to be seen. You have to do this. And, I felt like for a long time that there were all these expectations put on me, that everybody wanted me to do this, and I had to succeed and, be the best there ever could be at every single thing I did. And, I worked my butt off at work. I've been working at my job for 2 years now. I was promoted to an associate trainer within 6 months and management within a year and a half. That was a product of me having to be good at everything I did. And I had to stop and think about it and say, am I doing this because I want to do this, or am I doing this because I feel like everybody else wants me to do this? I did change my major about 3 times because I decided that what everybody else wanted me to do wasn't for me. I was a foreign language major, and even though I do like foreign languages, I can't sit in a room and speak German for an hour and a half a day and keep sane. So, today it's all about me. I can say that today and not feel selfish about it, because I can say, I have to take care of me. I have to keep myself sane. And that was a big part of my decision with my dad, too, is I have to keep myself sane. Because I can't go into a meeting and be like, and have somebody say, oh my God, this is a big problem, blah, blah, blah. I can't share my experience, strength, and hope if I don't have any experience, strength, or hope. If I haven't gotten any better, I don't have anything good to say. I love giving back to this program because it's given me so much. It has saved my life, literally, on multiple occasions. And I have to give back. And today my way of giving back is by going to meetings and by being there when somebody else calls me and by doing my part and keeping myself sane, working my program. And, you know, I go to meetings and I hear the most gratifying thing is probably when somebody who's been there for maybe 3 weeks says something and it clicks in my head and I say, oh yeah, that's really smart. Because sometimes it's just out of the mouths of babes. I've learned things from 13-year-olds in this program. But you know, with my last few minutes, I'm going to give a little brief kick on service work because I think service work is really important in this program. I started doing service work shortly after getting to J-Town. The group needed a group rep, and I stepped up to the plate. And that was really gratifying for me because, like I said, this program has given me so much, and there has to be a way to give back. And for everybody, it's different, but for me, that's what it was. And so I started getting into service work. I started going to district meetings and area assemblies. I did a lot of good stuff, and I did get the opportunity to chair Comiac, and I'm really grateful for that because I got to stand in front of 350 or 250, about 300 people who have been through the same stuff I've been through, and are going through the same stuff I'm going through, and whose problems are just like mine, and say, hi, I'm Matt, and hopefully my smile brighten their day. And you know, I got to do that because of the hard work and because of my willingness to give back. And today I am willing to do whatever my higher power points me towards. And it's because I don't know where that's going to lead me. You know, I don't know where I'm going tomorrow. I know what I'm scheduled to do tomorrow, but whether or not I go is up to my higher power's will. And if I follow it, if I just keep doing that next right thing and taking that next step and doing, you know, keep praying and keep asking for guidance, then I'll end up where I'm supposed to end up. Hopefully that'll take me somewhere good. It will take me somewhere good because wherever I go, I'll have a program and I'll have friends in the program and I'll have the tools I need to get by. And so one last public service announcement. If you have a kid who isn't in Alateen, who is from 8 to 20, find a meeting. There are plenty in this city. There are several throughout the state. Find a meeting. Come up to one of the Alateen sponsors. Come up to, you know, we've got a booth out there. We're selling raffle tickets to go back to Comiac. If you haven't bought one, you should go buy one. Shameless plug. I'm not above begging. Don't try me. But if you have a kid who isn't in Alateen, you are doing that kid a great disservice. Because I was in that kid's place, and I know how hard it is to be in that kid's place. And it truly is a family disease. If you think that because you never beat your child or because you never heard anything, the most dramatic experience that ever happened to me was I almost got hit by a fork that my mother swears to this day slipped. She threw it at me, but she swears to this day it slipped. And you know, my mom never beat me up. My mom never really yelled at me. I got grounded a lot, but she never really yelled at me. You know, she never went to jail. But I truly was affected by the alcoholism in her life. And I guarantee it, the kids in your life, in the life of the alcoholic, are being affected. And I'm always welcome to meeting new people. So bring them out to J-Town, there's a Tuesday night meeting that needs support. There's a Wednesday night meeting in Southern Indiana. I know there's a meeting in Bowling Green. There's one down in Radcliffe. There's one in Brandenburg, not Radcliffe. There's one in Richmond. There's one, they start one up in Lexington again? I don't know. They started one up in Lexington again. They're all over the place. Find a meeting schedule, www.alanon.org. Find a meeting, take them to it, get them out there, because we love newcomers, and you'll see growth, and they'll see growth, and they deserve it, and so do you. So, and with that, I'm running a little over, so I love